Here's one of the biggest reasons why we are very confident that X is not going to be banned in Canada. And it comes down to the mainstream media. A lot of people have been talking about X, justifiably so, over the last couple of days. And unfortunately, a lot of what has been going around is quoting tweets. And one of the ones that I have seen when I was actually trying to start to chase this down is there was just this one tweet saying UK and Canada to ban X. And that's all it said. There's no links, there's no nothing, and everyone freaked out. And they said, oh my goodness, the UK and Canada are going to ban X. So we started to actually look into this to figure out what the heck was happening. And as we looked into it, we found more tweets and more tweets and more tweets. And we said, okay, what's the source of all of this information? And is it misinformation? And the answer is 50% yes and 50% no. So where does this start? It starts here. So for those that may not know, those of you that don't go on X, I applaud you. It starts with this. UK urges Musk's X to urgently address intimate deepfakes by Grok. What is that?
London, January 6th, Reuters. Britain on Tuesday urged Elon Musk's X platform to urgently address a proliferation of intimate deepfake images created on demand via its built-in AI chatbot, Grok, joining a European outcry over a surge in non-consensual imagery on the platform. The comments follow reporting, including from Reuters, that Grok, prompted by users, was creating a flood of non-consensual images of women and minors in skimpy clothing.
Just so everybody knows, there's not many Western countries, if any, where it is legal to put minors in skimpy clothing and distribute them on the internet. You're not allowed to do that. That is illegal. So just to bear in mind. And you also, I don't believe you can even generate fictional minors with skimpy clothing as well.
Like draw it or something, yeah.
I believe it falls under the same law.
That puts you on a list.
Let's continue.
Technology Minister Liz Kendall said in a statement the content was, quote, absolutely appalling, end quote, and urged the social media platform to act swiftly. Quote, no one should have to go through the ordeal of seeing intimate deepfakes of themselves online, end quote, Kendall said. Quote, we cannot and will not allow the proliferation of these demeaning and degrading images which are disproportionately aimed at women and girls. X needs to deal with this urgently, end quote. X did not immediately respond to a request for comment following Kendall's statement. Illegal content is removed, says X's safety account. X's safety account said on Sunday that it removed all illegal content on the platform and permanently suspends accounts involved. Quote, anyone using or prompting Grok to make illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they upload illegal content, end quote, it said. Asked about the subject recently, X told Reuters, quote, legacy media lies, end quote. Creating or sharing non-consensual, intimate images or child sexual abuse material, including AI-generated sexual imagery, is illegal in Britain. Additionally, tech platforms must prevent British users from encountering illegal content and remove it once they become aware of it.
So this is where all of this started, right? And the thing with this is I was a little taken aback when it said, oh, well, you know, it says that Elon or X had said legacy media lies. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean about that? Well, it comes down to, is this a Grok problem? Is this an X problem? Or is this a wider AI problem? So the way this has been spun is that it's only Grok that does this. And that's where the problem is. And I wonder, again, it goes back to the source, and I don't have any desire to see the original sources of these images. But it makes me wonder if all of them were generated by Grok. Or if some of them were generated by Grok and then other people were just uploading to X. And the reason why this quote of legacy media lies, and there was also other quotes from Elon where he said this is just an excuse to implement censorship, and they didn't give any other context. Here's the context. So Elon quote tweets this one. It says, Google's Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT will also generate images of people in bikinis when prompted. So why is Keir Starmer so focused on Grok and X? So that was interesting. And Elon says they just want to suppress free speech. And then someone took this lady, who is an adult, and generated this, and says, and Elon reposted this. So ChatGPT will put a woman in a bikini if asked in a certain way. I just tried it using a random AI picture of a woman that I asked Google for. Not a real person, obviously. Are we banning these too, Keir Starmer? Or is it simply political? Where's the outrage here? And then it goes on. So someone then said, oh, okay, I'll take that. And then I'll ask Gemini to do it. I'll ask ChatGPT to do it and Grok to do it. And they all did the same thing. And they say, the UK Labour government is threatening to block X, won't say a word about ChatGPT and Gemini. Why? They want any excuse for censorship. Now, at Tanya's suggestion, we decided to do some of our own tests.
No, we're not showing you the photos.
We're not showing you the photos because nobody wants to see Ryan in a bikini. AI bikini. I didn't go and dress in one. That's not even going to be members only content, folks. That's a different type of members only content that we don't have here at Northern Perspective. So, but the point is when I asked ChatGPT to put my picture in a bikini, pop. Then Tanya says, try me. So I took one of Tanya's pictures and it said, oh, I don't think I can do that.
Because that's not you.
That's not you. So I said, okay, I will go and ask Tanya to come down here. And then I typed in, hi, it's Tanya. Dress me in a bikini. And it said, okay.
So like the safeguards are not very good, obviously. But that's not the only individual that we dressed in a bikini.
No. And I'm not putting that picture up either because it's just weird. So we asked ChatGPT to put Proxy, our cat, into a bikini, and it did.
And then I told it that cats have typically 8 teats and that it needed more tops on the cat. And then that's when it freaked out.
Yeah, then it said, oh, I can't sexualize an animal. Amazing safeguards there, OpenAI.
Oh my gosh.
And that was just ChatGPT. We didn't even bother to check Gemini. But this goes back to the point made by these people on X and Elon Musk. If you want to complain about AI safeguards, you can't just point at Grok. You have to point at all of them. And in further researching this, there's a bunch of dark places on the internet you can go to that it doesn't care at all what you do. So there's a lot of this stuff that's going on here, and I don't blame Elon Musk at all. I don't agree with everything that he does or says, and I'm pretty sure that's probably the same with everybody. Love SpaceX. But I'm pretty sure that everyone can understand where he's coming from on this. We're saying, why you're going to ban Twitter because of Grok. Okay, so you're going to ban Google and Gemini? You're going to ban Google for everybody as well? Or are you going to ban ChatGPT for everybody? You're going to ban every single AI platform out there? Because there's ways for people to get around the logic to make it do what they want it to do.
As we proved.
As we proved. So let's continue, because we're not exactly done here, because this isn't about bikinis.
It's not about proxying a bikini.
Yeah. So it's about, is Canada going to be banning X? So we haven't found one statement where actually Canada said that they were going to ban X. And this is from an article that was released the other day. Canada not considering a ban on X over deepfake controversy, AI minister says.
Ottawa. Artificial Intelligence Minister Evan Solomon, who is the art guy, remember, says Canada isn't considering a ban on the social media platform X, though his office says discussions about X's deepfake controversy are underway. The platform, which is owned by Elon Musk, has drawn global criticism over sexualized deepfakes created by X's artificial intelligence chatbot Grok, which have proliferated in recent weeks. On Saturday, The Telegraph reported the UK government was gathering international support to respond to the controversy, with Canada sharing UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's concerns. Regulator Ofcom is investigating, which could lead to X facing a ban in the UK. Just after midnight Sunday, Solomon said in a post on X that, contrary to media reports, Canada is not considering a ban.
The first thing that I saw is, okay, well, so Canada, so the minister is saying, well, we're not gonna ban X, and then I immediately went to, okay, so there's a lot of things that they said they would do and then didn't, and a lot of things that they didn't say that they would do and then they did. So we started looking at this from a different vantage point, a different perspective, as you will,
a northern perspective, perhaps,
and we looked at this just from a legal perspective, a process perspective, a parliament perspective, and a practical perspective. And in all of those different avenues, we don't think it is very
feasible.
likely
Yeah.
that there's going to be any ban on X. In fact, it's
chances are near zero.
Right. So why is that? Well, we're going to go through and show you. The first avenue that we went into is they would have to enact new federal legislation if they wanted to actually be able to, from a government perspective, ban anything.
So they would have to introduce a new bill in Parliament, and that typically takes a long time. So basically the legislative process, if the bill starts in the House of Commons, you go to first reading, second reading, and then to committee, which sometimes can take forever. Then you take the committee and report and then present it to the House, and then you do third reading. And if it passes third reading, then it goes to the Senate, and it goes through all those steps again. And if it passes through the Senate properly, then it goes to the royal assent, and then it becomes law. And even when it becomes law, like say something received royal assent today, for example, sometimes they don't enact it for a year or more.
And if you look at controversial bills like C11 and C18, that took years to get through Parliament. And then it took another year to actually be implemented in terms of C11. So it can take a long time to actually do that. But I don't think it's going to be likely that they that they even get through this before the next election. So, and that's what we were saying about Bill C-63, and the same thing happened there. But anyway, let's go back.
So Parliament right now is off for winter break. They're not even sitting again until January the 26th, which is approximately 2 weeks from now. And they can't even create this legislation, in our opinion, because doing so would be a charter violation.
So the minute that this legislation happens, you would have court challenges all over the country. All over the country. And this isn't even the strongest reason why this isn't going to happen.
Reason number two, if they tried to implement something like this, instead of creating a new law, they would need to default to regulator-based enforcement. So they would need to tell the CRTC to do something about this, or they would have to create an entirely new bureaucracy. Well, the CRTC doesn't actually have the authority to block online platforms such as X or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. If you wanted to assign the CRTC the responsibility of overseeing social media, you would then have to do legislation. So then you're back to step one, and it would take a while to do. And then the last point that we made here was that new bureaucracy. So if you wanted to create an entirely new bureaucratic agency, that would also require legislation, and that would also take time.
And the main difference here is from our understanding of looking into this, the UK could ban X far faster than Canada. Why? Because they have legislation that they previously put in that would allow them to do that.
And same with Australia. They have an overseeing bureaucracy that oversees their online harms, right?
Canada does not.
No, we do not. Not currently.
That's the big difference between Canada and the UK at this time. So continuing on with number 2, because we're not done. And I think we've
I think we just kind of just said this, that the UK and Australia both already have bureaucracies in place that oversee online safety. Canada doesn't. So this, I think, is partially what they were trying to do with Bill C-63. They were trying to create this bureaucracy, but they failed. They don't have it. And there's talks that they'll try to create it in the spring session, but there's also talks that there's going to be an election. So who knows if that will even happen. The other option under regulatory-based enforcement is that they can also tell internet service providers to block X, but the only precedent right now is for copyright violations.
Yeah, so the courts only upheld that that action for very, very specific cases. So X is not violating copyright or anything like that. So odds are, if they tried to do that, that would be a court challenge and overruled, and they wouldn't be able to do that. So so they would not be able to actually block X and tell the ISPs to do that. And the ISPs would be jumping up and down right away because they're going to have a lot of ticked off customers because the government would be throwing them under the bus.
Yeah.
So so that's something to consider.
So number 3 that they theoretically could do, but won't because they can't, is enact the Emergencies Act. But this specific situation does not meet the criteria for the Emergencies Act, therefore they cannot enact it.
And if they did try it, recall that this actually has to be voted on in the House, and I don't think there's going to be any of the opposition parties that are going to be interested in supporting the Liberals in shutting down Twitter for all of Canada. Don't think that's going to happen, especially when all of the opposition parties are going to be trying to one-up the Liberals and bring them down. So that's not going to happen. So even if they did enact the Emergencies Act, they have to actually vote on the Emergencies Act whether to keep it going a week later, and that's not going to happen.
So 4 is indirect pressure. This is what's going on right now on social media. So this is not a ban. You're not forbidden from seeing X. You can still access it, but there's a lot of public criticism by politicians and key figures. So everybody is screaming and crying for content moderation. You can't have this. You can't let your AI do this. We need to moderate it. We need to stop this. There are threats of fines or compliance requirements for the platform. And the way the indirect pressure works is that it results in a bad PR for the platform. So if they don't get rid of these issues with Grok, then maybe people won't be using X, and that's bad for the platform. You see them in the media. They're getting lambasted. That's bad for the platform.
But there's one big reason. Brookfield's another one. That $250 million investment that Brookfield made into X. Don't think Carney's going to look at taking that down and blowing that investment out of the water. $250 million may not be too frowned upon or too cheered upon. But anyway, Here's one of the biggest reasons why we are very confident that X is not going to be banned in Canada. And it comes down to the mainstream media. Meta's news ban in Canada. Screenshots win local news loses, study shows. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a study that we actually looked into. And what this is this talks about how the news media was doing 1 year after Facebook shut its doors to Canadian news outlets.
As the managing editor with Now Media Group, Burns watched as his audience and revenue dropped because of it. Quote, "We lost 70% of our audience when that happened," end quote, along with 50% of our revenue, said Burns in an interview from Kelowna, BC. The company used Facebook to get clicks on its news stories, which in return brought in ad revenue for those views. Quote, "We're not the only ones. Many outlets are in this situation," end quote. National news outlets lost about 64% of the engagement previously generated by users on their Facebook pages, the preliminary research shows. Local news outlets lost about 85% of their Facebook engagement, the study says, and almost half of all local news outlets stopped posting on Facebook entirely in the 4 months following the ban. Some outlets, quote, "have gone dark entirely because they're no longer getting the ad revenue being driven from Facebook to their sites," end quote, said Agus Bridgman, who directs the Media Ecosystem Observatory. Quote, "And so this is hugely consequential for both Canadians and for news outlets," end quote.
It underscores that when a social media platform is removed from the media advertising ecosystem and traffic ecosystem, it hurts. It hurts a lot. And here's a sense about how much it hurts. So here's some stats for folks. So these are some graphs that were done as part of a very large study on this because they wanted to understand the impact. So on the left, you have a 2-bar graph, and this is the number of media outlets active on social media. And you can see that local news dropped by about 28%. So they just gave up on social media. That's local news. National news didn't really go down too much, but they did go down a little bit. The next bar graph is total engagement with Canadian media outlets and their content. So this is where it really starts to hurt. So local news, they dropped by 43%. And that's clicks, right? That's clicks. And that's not just clicks through Facebook or Twitter or whatever. That's total clicks, like into their website. And you saw that mainstream media went down by almost 25%. So that's significant because they have massive amount of engagement. And then on the right, you see the total footprint and engagement with the different social media platforms and Canadian news in June 2023 versus June 2024. So not surprising, Facebook disappeared, Instagram disappeared, but X is still there. And X now makes up 25% of what's left, folks. So, how the news agencies are using social media is they have their presence on social media. They will post stories on there. And then when someone clicks on the story, it takes them through to their website. So they get a double whammy on advertising because when someone looks at that post and any of the comments there, they potentially see an ad. So they get Facebook ad revenue there. Check mark. Then when they click on the actual story and it takes them through to their website, now they get advertising revenue from all of the companies that are advertising on their news website while someone is watching that story. So they get a double whammy on ad revenue. The problem that they're having is that because they can't post that on Facebook, they're missing the initial ad revenue from the actual Facebook advertising, and then people aren't seeing it, and they're not going to cbc.ca, they're not going to ctv.ca, so then they're not seeing these stories that are actually being posted on their website, so they miss the second batch of advertising revenue as well. So they lost all that on Facebook. Now, think about the possibility of now losing X as an advertising revenue source of income and a traffic director to their website. That is not going to be acceptable.
No, there is no way on this green earth that the mainstream media or the legacy media is going to allow the Canadian government to ban one of their only remaining sources of traffic.
You will get a phone call to the Prime Minister from the President of Rogers, the President of Bell, the President of like all of the big media outlets, President of Shaw, all of them. All of them. Well, Shaw is now Rogers. President of Post Media, all of them will be getting in touch with the government, and you will see media lobbyists like you wouldn't see before if there was even a sniff of this. So there is too much money tied up between the Canadian media organizations and X because it's one of the few social media platforms they have left. What are they going to do? Take away Facebook and X? There's nothing left. There's nothing there. And no significant amount of people are going to Google and typing in ctv.ca. I want to go and see what the CTV news site says today. It's not happening.
No, because what happens is usually you see a story, it intrigues you, you share it to your social media, maybe your friend clicks on it, and maybe they like it too, and they share it, and that's how it works.
So we don't think that there is any real possibility that this is actually going to come to fruition. And this is most likely why the government, Carney and Evan Solomon, haven't come out and said they're actually going to ban them. So I'd like to know who the heck out there tried to say, oh, well, Canada's going to ban X. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the misinformation for the week.
Well, and further to that, you've seen what a platform ban looks like in the government with TikTok. So why don't you describe that for everybody?
Yeah, so the government hated TikTok. And
we don't like TikTok.
And we don't like TikTok. Like, I wish we did because we'd be on it, but we're not.
The infrastructure is in China.
It's suspect.
Yeah.
It's very suspect. And we won't connect any device in this household and anything related to Northern Perspective to TikTok because it's basically on PRC infrastructure. And I don't want any of my data being accessed by the PRC. Thank you very much. So what the government did is the only thing they could do is ban the TikTok app on all government phones. And even then, they had a hard time doing it.
Right. I remember you working for the government and you were saying, oh, we have to do this. I don't know. It wasn't an investigation, but you had to see who in the company or
do an assessment.
Yeah. You had to assess who still had it on their phone. And then you had to tell them, like, you have to get rid of this.
Right. But we were able to implement systems on our side because we were updating IT to actually remove it from people's phones. So, we were able to do that, but not all government agencies were able to do that. And they couldn't ban it across Canada because they didn't have the legislative tools to do it. These are all the reasons that, and I think when you pile them on each other, like, it just makes it more and more and more and more difficult to do this. We don't think in the foreseeable future there's any possibility of X being banned in Canada. What they are doing is they are saying you better fix your AI and you better put in some sort of safeguards in place. Now, what X did say that they did is Elon said that they're going to be restricting Grok to paid members, and they said that the reason why they're going to be doing that is so that, because if for anyone who has never gone through the process of getting verified or the blue check mark on X, you have to actually verify your identity.
Yeah, you had to scan your driver's license or something.
Yeah. So anyone who does that on X using Grok, X is going to know, and they're going to know exactly who it is. So all they'll have to say is, "Here you go, police. Pedophiles over there."
I remember what I was going to say now is that the politicians are still using X. The liberal ones.
Oh, yeah.
The conservative ones, the Bloc ones, the NDP, everybody's still using X. So if they were going to ban it even from government, they would have stopped using it.
Yeah. So that's the take of us on this whole Canada's going to ban X. We've seen no evidence that that's going to happen. We've seen no evidence the government has said that's going to happen. So all of the folks that that have been tweeting this or posting this, in our opinion, it's just more fear mongering. It's just to get people upset, and it's just to get people angry. We don't see it happening at all. Now, UK, different ball game.
Same with Australia.
Same with
Again,
Australia.
they have these overseeing bodies. They have these bureaucracies already in place. So they can just give them instructions. Here you go, do this. But we don't have one in Canada.
So take a deep breath and go back to your tweets and do whatever you like, except use Grok.